So there's a lot of propaganda around every war, and every side in every war does propaganda, right? And that's the thing you have to keep in mind. But the person doing the propaganda for Ukraine was doing it so over the top that they had to fire her. I'm not kidding. The headline is Ukraine fires own human rights chief for perpetuating Russian troops' systematic rape stories. Hey, you've heard those stories, haven't you? I've heard them, that Russia is doing systematic rape. Now, whenever I hear something like that, I don't know how, how you keep a boner in a war zone. I don't know how you can do that. That's just, I mean, I'm not being funny. I just don't know how, that just seems nuts to me. I don't know how you could do that, but what do you...
Well, historically, like after World War II, Russia is well known for that, but that's like the end of a war where they've built up a huge amount of anger. Everything's...
They lost 20 million people in the World War II. Russia did.
That's what I'm saying. Like so that's a real end of the war when everybody's grudges are real built. They're saying this is a plan going in.
They're doing it at the beginning.
Coordinated, which is like extraordinary. I mean, that's like that's a lot. That's a big thing.
So you're right. Let's get to the story. It says, for over the past 2 months, an avalanche of stories have hit Western mainstream press, which purported, I love that word, purported to document instances of mass rape carried out by Russian troops against Ukrainian civilians. One particular story in Time magazine, it took off, driving outrage and condemnation by Western officials and receiving repeat coverage on CNN and other major U.S. networks. It alleged a systemic, coordinated campaign of sexual violence, relying chiefly on the testimony gathered by Ukraine's appointed top human rights representative. It included a particularly shocking story of 25 teen girls being gang raped by Russian troops, 9 of which became pregnant, according to the report. I got the wrong thing here. Hang on. And this is from the report. Ukraine's human rights ombudsman, Lyudmila Denyazova, said that...
Ludmilla.
How do you say it?
Ludmilla? Yeah, I think. Mm-hmm.
Denisova said that 25 teenage girls were kept in a basement in Bucha and gang raped. 9 of them are now pregnant. Elderly women spoke on camera about being raped by Russian soldiers. The bodies of children were found naked with their hands tied behind their backs, their genitals mutilated. Those victims included both boys and girls. And here it is in Time magazine. Ukrainians are speaking up about rape as a war crime to ensure the world holds Russia accountable. As has been the pattern in prior wars, whether in Syria or Libya, the media claims got more and more sensational and over the top as the conflict intensified, and as Western powers became more deeply involved, yet with no concrete or definitive proof. Now, this is just another made-up war crime. Now, we told you about the first one, when they were talking about Bucha, and Scott Ritter actually got the ex-UN weapons inspector got banned from Twitter over that for doubting the official reports on the war crimes happening in Bucha. They censored him. Well, and of course, again, you can't, people were reporting that like Ali Veshi at MSN, but everybody was reporting it as fact that these war crimes were committed by Russia and that actually happened, and they knew how it already happened. And how they know? They knew because the U.S. government was telling them that.
Jimmy, can I just say, I hashtag believe Ukraine, and I hope the ghost of Kyiv can put a stop to this.
Yes. So here, okay. So that's what happens in war, and then the media reports it. But one of the consistent details in the majority of the stories is that the aforementioned Ukraine human rights ombudsman, how do you say that, Kurt?
Oh, Ludmilla?
Ludmilla, that's it. Ludmilla is often the central figure feeding Western correspondents the shocking rape stories. For example, she's featured in this April Newsweek piece. Here it is. It says, Russians raped an 11-year-old boy and forced their mom to watch. I saw that headline.
Wow, that's like Congolese civil war.
Yeah, yes.
like details.
Ludmila, the Ukrainian parliament's commissioner for human rights, alleged on Friday that Russian soldiers have raped children during the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. In a Facebook post, Denisova alleged that an 11-year-old boy was raped by Russians in front of his mother, who was tied to a chair and forced to watch as it happened in the Ukrainian city of Bucha. Many such stories, which presented even more horrifying details as the war progressed, quickly went viral, particularly among pro-Ukraine activists on Twitter and other social media, to the point where prominent pundits would begin casually agreeing amongst themselves that Russians simply are animals. But recently, within the last couple of weeks, as investigators began to dig deeper into the allegations, it seems the media stories started to dry up. The geopolitical analysis blog, Moon of Alabama, details what happened in the following. However, a bunch of eager NGOs, that stands for non-governmental organizations, a bunch of non-governmental organizations in Ukraine hoping for fresh Western money for new rape consultation and recovery projects tried to find real rape cases. They were disappointed when they found that there was no evidence that any rape had taken place. So these people are looking for money. So for their organization that goes and helps people. And so they're going to go help rape victims. And so they had to go find some real cases of it happening, and they couldn't. On May 25th, a number of media outlets and NGOs published an open appeal to Ludmila calling for improved communication on sexual crimes during the war. Sexual crimes during the war are family tragedies, a difficult, traumatic topic, not a topic for publications in the spirit of a scandalous chronicle. We need to keep in mind the goal to draw attention to the facts of crimes, the appeal reads. An entire global activist movement even sprang up, which focused on highlighting Russian sexual crimes in Ukraine based on the premise that Russia's military is using rape as a tool as part of its arsenal to spread a campaign of terror. And now, on Tuesday, Interfax, Politico, the Wall Street Journal, and others are reporting that Ludmila Denisova has been fired, precisely for floating and perpetuating fantastical claims of mass rape, but without providing evidence. It's like she's the Amber Heard of Ukraine, am I right? Come on, am I right? Ukrainian lawmakers dismissed the country's ombudsman for human rights. Ludmila Denisova is in a no-confidence vote on Tuesday, concluding that she had failed to fulfill obligations, including the facilitation of humanitarian corridors and countering the deportation of Ukrainians from occupied territory, the Wall Street Journal reported late in the day. Lawmaker Pavlo Frolov said Ms. Denisova was also accused of making insensitive and unverifiable statements about, alleged Russian sex crimes and spending too much time in Western Europe during the invasion.
She's supposed to be setting up for people to get out those corridors. And instead, she was writing rape fiction in Western Europe.
Yes.
And basically starting there's gold and then there are hills. So all these NGOs were like, no, we can do our count. And then they didn't find any. And they're like, hey, what gives? You said there was a bunch of rapes here.
Yes.
Wow.
That's right. That you got it. Thanks for that is a good recap. And here is someone repeating this story breathlessly, a blue check. 25 teenage girls were gang raped. 9 are now pregnant. Elderly woman spoke about being raped by Russian soldiers. The bodies of children were found naked with their heads. A harrowing. So all that's made up. It's all made up.
It's like Ralph Wiggum wrote it from the Simpsons.
But YouTube and Twitter and Facebook could just cancel us right now for saying this, because they could just say, oh, we're trivializing it, or we're misreporting, or we're denying a horrible thing that happened. You can't do that. They could do it. They could do whatever they want.
The craziest part about this story also is that we knew the whole time it was ludicrous to assume something like this had happened, because the Russians spent over a month in Bucha in peace and harmony with the citizens of the town. They weren't having to like arrest people if they were spreading alleged misinformation like the Ukrainian SBU was doing. They were actually trading with the local Ukrainians in Bucha for food and trading them dry goods. They were very, I mean, probably not happy, but at least living in relative harmony with the Russians.
Yeah, in fact, when Russia left Bucha, or you say Bucha?
I think I don't know.
So when the mayor came out, he didn't say anything about any war crimes or anything. No reports, no nothing. Then
there was New York Times journalists on the ground leading up to the fleeing of the Russian troops, or as they put it, tactical withdrawal. They were there in the days preceding that, and they didn't report any, mass, human atrocities or war crimes or anything like that.
But the only reason this lady got fired, because it's not that they're like you're saying these fake things. It's like you can't be so stupid at it that the people who make money off this don't make money off it, and we look like assholes.
Yeah, I think
that's what happened.
That of course that's what happened. That you did it in a way that was too obvious. You're bad at it. You're supposed to give us a lie we can believe forever.
Yeah.
Okay. But by the way, all this seems to be happening after they got the $40 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. So mission accomplished. The most corrupt country in Europe got $54 billion out of the United States. And I want to say at least half of that money is probably half that money is ending up in the pockets of Ukrainian corrupted people. And the other half is going to the military-industrial complex here in the United States. That's my guess. We'll never know. We'll never know because they just put that money on pallets and shipped it over to Ukraine. You think I'm kidding? Wait for those stories. They're going to come out. They gave them cash. Not all of it in cash. No. But they did give them. I mean, remember those stories in Iraq about pallets of cash?
In Afghanistan, yeah.
And Afghanistan, pallets.
They also got a new round of sanctions out of this. And you saw Ursula von der Leyen of the EU was citing Bucha and the supposed atrocities there for pushing through this new round of sanctions.
The sanctions are only hurting the United States and Europe. They're not hurt. Russia's ruble is doing as good as ever.
Gas is way cheaper there.
Gas is way cheaper there, and they have universal health care in Russia, and they're now forming new alliances with who? With Italy, with China, with Saudi Arabia. You saw that Italy's buying Russian gas in rubles.
Mm-hmm. And India.
India.
Pakistan.
So here's what Moon of Alabama says. Such accusations of mass rape by the enemy de jure are made in every war. They rarely turn out to be true. This is so that they're letting her know, Julia Lafay, that you're repeating propaganda. And you should know better. That's what they're saying to her. You should know better. They don't. People don't know better. Needless to say, this is an absolutely devastating blow to Ukraine's information war, which has been in full force since the Russian invasion. As naturally in war, each side will enter into propaganda campaigns against the other simultaneously to the actual ground war, and while seeking to sway world opinion. So that's the end of that. Over at Zero Hedge. Isn't it amazing? No, see, you're too young to remember. But I remember, I never thought people would fall for this shit again after Iraq. But of course they did in Libya, they did in Syria, and here we are in Ukraine. Same shit. Is it surprising to anybody that Americans fall for this?
No, not to me. I'm like, I guess now with Deb V. Heard, maybe people wise up. That was the only hope of people wising up was Deb V. Heard.
I think it's also important to note, and Jimmy, you did expose this, that 53% of Americans say they don't care if Ukraine loses this war to Russia. So I think there are more Americans who are waking up to what's going on than we might give them credit for.
I mean, I don't understand how anybody
could give a shit.
Yeah, like this is like if you care deeply about MCU movies at this point. Like
I know
Phase 4 is not as interesting as the previous one.
No, it's still crazy.
Okay, keep watching the mainstream news. Keep being wrong about Ukraine. Hey, we're doing stand-up comedy in Irvine, California, Las Vegas, San Diego, Salt Lake City, Indianapolis, Louisville, all over the place. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for tickets.